So in the last section, we were looking at the remainder theorem, where we were able to take a shortcut way of being able to work out the remainder for a polynomial. Now, what's interesting about the factor theorem is that if that remainder is equal to 0, okay, then what you are dividing by is actually a factor. Okay, so ax plus b is actually a factor if your remainder is 0. So let's see this in use. In this question, it says, show that x plus 1 is a factor of that polynomial and hence find the other linear factors. Well, there's a couple of parts to this question. First of all, we need to show that x plus 1 is a factor. So remember, if it's a factor, its remainder is 0. Now, x plus 1, remember, x plus 1 equal to 0. This gives us x equal to minus 1. So p of minus 1 is equal to 0. That's what we want to show. That's what we want to show. So if our remainder is 0, we know x plus 1 is a factor. So let's have a go at that. P of minus 1 would be minus 1 cubed minus 4 times minus 1 squared plus minus 1. Look at all the brackets I'm putting in just to be careful with my signs. Minus 1 cubed is minus 1. Minus 1 squared is 1 times minus 4 is minus 4. Positive times a negative is a negative, so minus 1 plus 6. Minus 1 minus 4 is minus 5. Minus 6 plus 6 is 0. Okay, so because our remainder is 0, it means that x plus 1 is a factor. So therefore, x plus 1 is a factor. It is a linear factor. Now, the next part of the question says, and hence find the other linear factors. In order to find the other linear factors, we have to use long division. So let's go through long division again. Okay, so what does long division look like? We are dividing x plus 1 into, okay, what was our polynomial? It is x cubed minus 4x squared plus x plus 6. All right, what do we ask ourselves? How many times does x go into x cubed? Or what do I have to times x by to get x cubed? And the answer is x squared. So x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times 1 is positive x squared. What do? I subtract and cancel, and that's what we want it to happen. Minus 4 minus 1 is minus 5x squared. And then we bring down the next term, which is plus x. And then we start all over again. X goes into minus 5x squared. How many times? Well, what do I need to multiply it by? I need to multiply it by minus 5 and x. So minus 5x times x gives me minus 5x squared. Minus 5x times 1 is minus 5x. Again, subtract them and they cancel. X minus minus is plus. So x plus 5 is 6x. Last step then is to bring the 6 down. So it's plus 6. And of course, remember, we should end up with 0 because we found that our remainder is 0. So what's the last step? How many times does x go into 6x? It goes in 6 times. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 1 is 6. Subtract. And we end up with 0. So what we've got so far as our factors are x plus 1 and x squared minus 5x plus 6. Now, the question does ask for the linear factors. Only x plus 1 is a linear factor there, so we now need to factorise our quadratic, which is a fairly simple factorisation. If you have a look at that and use your cross-bridge method, factors of 6, which give you minus 5, would be minus 3 and minus 2. So x plus 1, x minus 3, x minus 2 are your linear factors for that cubic. So there was quite a bit of work involved there, but not particularly difficult. It's just putting a lot of stuff together that we've done so far. All right, now with this example here, we're starting from absolute scratch. We're not even given a linear factor, yet we want to factorise a cubic. So we're going to start off exactly the same way. We're going to find an x value that what I substitute into that will give me 0. So p of something must equal 0. P of something needs to equal 0. Now this is trial and error. I would always start with 1 minus 1, 2 minus 2, so that I can get them out. So I'm going to just start with p of 1 and see what happens here. P of 1 is equal to 1 cubed minus 2 times 1 squared minus 5 times 1 plus 6. What does that give me? 1 minus 2 minus 5 plus 6. 1 minus 2 is minus 1, minus 5 is minus 6 plus 6. So in actual fact, p of 1 is equal to 0, which is great. It was my first choice, but it's not always going to be that simple. It really is trial and error. So what is my linear factor? My first linear factor, and it is x minus 1. Remember, it's always the opposite. All right, so where do I go from there? I've got one factor. Well, one factor means I now need to divide that into my cubic to work out my other linear factors. So x minus 1, I've got long division happening here again, and it's x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. Let's go through it again. X goes into x cubed how many times? Well, x times x squared is x cubed. So gives me that. X squared times minus 1 is minus x squared. Subtract. All right, that's gone. Minus 2 plus x is minus x squared. And I'm going to bring down the minus 5x. And I start all over again. X goes into minus x squared, minus x times. So that gives me minus x times minus x squared. Is x squared, sorry. Minus x times minus 1 is plus x. Subtract, and that's gone. Minus 5 minus x is minus 6x. And then bring down the plus 6. X goes into minus 6, minus 6 times minus 6x. And minus times minus is a positive. Remember, we should be ending up with 0 here. If we don't end up with 0, then that factor that you divided by was either wrong, you worked that out incorrectly, or you've done your long division incorrectly. So we're just about now at the last point here. We have got to get our factors. So let's finish that off. We know that our factors so far are x minus 1 and x squared minus x minus 6. And of course, because we want linear factors, we need to factorise this quadratic. Let's have a look. It's a fairly simple one again. Factors of minus 6, which give you minus 1. So minus 3 times positive 2 is minus 6. Minus 3 plus 2 is minus 1. So my linear factors here are x minus 1, x minus 3, x plus 2. And that is now fully factorised.